Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're at in the U.S. or around the world. Welcome to Baseball Outside the Box. I'm your host, Pete Caliendo. This is a show that loves to interview baseball's best coaching minds who love to challenge the status quo, but we also just love to talk baseball. We've got some interesting people on the show all the time, and there's so much to learn. Listen, before we start, I want to thank everybody in the U.S. and around the world. Don't forget, check us out on social media, Facebook, Twitter. We're on all Baseball Outside the Box. Check it out. Not to mention, want to thank our special sponsor, SIS Ltd. Our Japanese friends, the IT company, does a lot of business in the U.S. I've known them over 25, 30 years. Right now, I'm sure they're doing a lot of work in Japan, but also have clients here in the U.S. And check them out at CaliendoSportsInternational.com. Go to the podcast, see their information. You could also email them at info@s/is.co.jp. That is also on the website. They are fantastic people. They'll do a great job for you. And welcome, ESPN Honolulu. Thanks for joining us again. We appreciate everything you do for us. Don't forget, folks, check out our website, CaliendoSportsInternational.com. Go to and check out all the trips that we have going around the world. We have a special one, fantasy camp for senior players, 40, 50, 60, 70 years old. All those players that love to continue to play the game. We're heading to Italy. Guess what? Legendary Reggie Smith and Mike Marshall, Dodger coaches, players, will be the coaches on that staff. So we'll have a great time traveling all over Italy, checking out the sites, playing games. So it's a fantasy camp for senior players. Go to, again, CaliendoSports.com and check it out. Any questions, send us an email. All right, folks, we got another great show for you. We're live on Facebook. If I'm just checking it out, if we have any questions on Facebook on the comments section, we will go ahead and ask the questions to our guest. And you know what? We've always got unique guests. And I'll tell you what, here's another one, but also not just unique, but he played in the big leagues for a period of 5 years. He was 13 years in professional baseball, but he grew up in the Dominican Republic. He grew up there since he was 4 years old. I want to rephrase that, and we're going to talk to him about that. But then also he coached in Cairo, Egypt. He's went to the Citadel, and he was a 41st pick in the draft. I mean, that is in the first round. They had more drafts in that period, draft players, I should say, in that round. So we're going to talk to our good friend. I met him at the ABCA. He's very interesting. He's got a lot of things he did all over the world in baseball also. I want to talk to him about that. Let's welcome to the show, Asher Wojciechowski. What's up, buddy? How you doing?
Hey Pete, how you doing? Nice to see you.
Hey, I didn't mess up the last name, did I? I usually do most of the time.
No, no, you got it. Wojciechowski. It's
Wojciechowski.
easier than it looks. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. And I'll tell you what, folks, we're going to be calling him Wojo. He said it's okay to call him Wojo. So I got permission and we're ready to rock and roll. Hey, listen, Asher, you did a lot of stuff, obviously, in the game. We're going to talk about the big league level, which is incredible. Just getting to professional baseball is incredible for any player. I think I don't care what level you played at. It's just amazing just to be able to play professional baseball. But prior to all this, talk about where you grew up. And very interesting, you ended up at 4 years old in the Dominican Republic, later on in Romania, Bucharest, and then in Egypt after your playing career. But talk about the youth program. When you first started. Well, how'd you end up in the Dominican?
Yeah, so I'll just give you a little rundown of kind of my life story. I was a journeyman in my professional career, just bounced around different teams, but I was a journeyman as a kid. I was a missionary kid. I was a pastor's kid. So I was born in Pensacola, Florida. We lived there till I was about 5, but during that time, when I was 4, we went on about a 3 or 4 month missions trip to Dominican Republic, and really got my feet wet in baseball in the Dominican as a 4-year-old, playing in the streets with the kids there, and really just like learning to love the game in the Dominican Republic. From there, when I was 6, we moved to Sturgis, Michigan for about 3 years, and then my parents told us, me and my sister, that we were moving to Bucharest, Romania. We had gone on a few mission trips there before, but they told us that we were moving there full time. indefinitely was the word. So before we moved to Bucharest, Romania, we had to travel across the U.S. and raise support for the mission that we were doing, which was going into the orphanages in Bucharest. So this was in 1998. This was 10 years after communism, and the orphanages in Bucharest were just overrun. They didn't have supplies. They were full of kids. So we went with an organization called Children to Love, and we essentially would bring supplies to these orphanages and play with these kids, love on these kids. And that was our mission. So before going that, we spent 3 months traveling the US in a Volkswagen van. We drove from Michigan to Florida to Virginia, all the way to Bakersfield, California, stopping all across the US and raising support. Then we spent 4 months in Bakersfield for missions training with the organization that we were working with. And then from there, I was able to play Little League as a 9-year-old in Bakersfield. And then from there, we moved to Bucharest. And then thought that my baseball career was kind of over at that point, because my parents had told me, hey, we're moving here indefinitely. And then I would tell them, okay, well, I'm moving back to the States when I'm 18. And that was kind of the running joke. So I thought I was going to have to get really good at soccer because we were in Bucharest, no baseball. And I loved baseball. I've loved baseball since I was 2 years old. So started playing soccer, started playing with the kids there, thinking I was going to have to pick up that sport. But when I was 11, we found out that Little League was coming to Bucharest, and they made a team, and it was the Romanian national team, and it was me and 2 other Americans, and then like 12 Romanians who had never played baseball before. And the practice facility was literally at some soccer sandlot, like rocks and dirt. There was no baseball field, but it was on the complete other side of Bucharest. So during the summer, we would go and practice there, and it took about an hour to get there, taking public transportation. But all that said, I got to practice with these Romanians. We had some of our friends bring over 2 metal bats from the States, and the whole team used these 2 bats. And so it was such a cool experience to be able to play in Bucharest with these Romanians who had never played before. And then we practiced all summer, and then we got to go to Kutno, Poland, and play in the European Little League World Series. And that was just such a cool experience. I remember we pulled into Kutno pretty late at night, but we went straight to the stadium, and like walking into that little stadium with the grandstands and seeing a nice grass field. I'll never forget that experience of where we were in Romania to go to Poland, and then you see a beautiful Little League baseball field. Just that experience kind of propelled me to be like, I want to be a big league baseball player. I want to continue to chase this feeling.
Let me just stop you just for a second.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think that because I love this, and I think it's a great story. But I want to take you back just for a second, back to the Dominican Republic, because
we'll go back there.
Because you got a combination of Dominican Republic, Romania, all of a sudden you fall in love, in Romania, you said, with Little League, all of a sudden you want to make it, you want to play Major League Baseball. But take me back to the Dominican at that age, playing with those kids there, like you said, in the streets. What did that do for you when it came to the development of the game? Because, a lot of times baseball's so organized, it may be too much sometimes, but at the same time, the Dominican Republic, these kids are playing, they're kind of playing on their own at times and learning the game on their own a lot quicker in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, it was just showing. I remember they were so much more athletic than I was. I remember being 4 years old, and I'm playing with these kids, and they're doing front flips and back flips and like landing on their feet. And I remember trying to do a front flip, and I would land on my head, and like I would get back up and I'd try again, but like I could never move like they could. And that was one of the things that I don't know, that really just frustrated me, because I wanted to be athletic like how these Dominican kids were. And I would work on that. So like I remember trying to do front flips, and I would just land on my back, land on my head, and but I just remember, just I don't have vivid memories of that, but I remember. And then I look back at pictures of like when we are playing catch, or like um grabbing a stick and hitting a baseball or hitting a bottle cap or anything like that. I remember being able to get my baseball fix when we were in Dominican, and just that being such a cool experience. And then looking back now and seeing all my teammates that I've had. And then when I went back to the Dominican in 2014 and I played winter ball, and just all the memories that came up when playing winter ball for Licey and Santo Domingo. It was just, such a cool experience, and just to be able to go through that and reflect on it when I think back on my career.
Yeah, and if you didn't do that, you wouldn't be kind of saying, emulating, saying, "Oh, I'm going to do some flips," or "I want to do this." And that's what I love about it, because I take teams to the Dominican Republic, and a lot of times, American kids will go there, and all of a sudden, we're practicing with the Dominican kids, right? And they're starting to do things some of the Dominicans are doing just by watching how they do it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's such a great learning experience, because you know their aspect is they don't have great gloves. They don't have all the great bats. Their fields aren't the best all the time. They're dealing with adversity a lot. They're knowing how to deal with that adversity, but at the same time, they've got that passion for the game too. And I think that's, it's attractable, right? You're there and you start to get even more
Mm-hmm.
passion. So that had to help you in all that later on when you end up in Romania. And not to mention, when you went to college or professional baseball or the big leagues.
Yeah, I definitely think it helped, and it just helped one, just by playing with kids who were different than you, and like having a language barrier at such a young age, but to be able to have the game of baseball to bring people from all over in different backgrounds, but you have the game of baseball to get along with and to learn from one another, and to build a relationship was something that I'll never forget, and is something that I always kind of lean on with life experiences and learning different cultures. And that's just something I'm really proud of when I look back on the experiences that I got to do through baseball.
Yeah, and then you go to Romania, and Romania is, a communist country at the time. You're under communism. It's I was just in Budapest, Hungary, and it's amazing. I think in 99, 98 is when they changed. It's amazing, the development they made in Budapest. I mean, the city's
Mm-hmm.
incredible. The advancement they made in a very short period. But you go to Romania, and kind of the similar thing in some ways. The fields couldn't have been that great. Like you said, the equipment, you only had two bats. So here you are as an American kid in a Dominican, in Romania. You're not dealing with the typical thing here in the U.S. where we got it all, right? The nice fields, here's some bats,
Mm-hmm.
here's some gloves, here's more batting tees, here's more equipment. You're dealing with some adversity, and you've got to play on some fields that are not the best fields. So it may not even be a field, right, in Romania at that time?
Mm-hmm. Correct. Yeah, it was an old, I think, just soccer field that was literally all dirt. So there was no grass growing on it. It was literally just a sand lot. But yeah, it was, and it was, we were there in Romania about 10 years after communism had fallen. So communism fell in 1989, I believe. So we were there in like 98. And like I said, it was just, I haven't been back to Bucharest since 2002, I believe, but I've heard Bucharest has changed dramatically since my time there. But yeah, it was just such an amazing experience to be able to once again have the game of baseball, to be able to transcend and build relationships with kids from way different cultures and different backgrounds and walks of lives, but be able to be on a baseball field and to be unified and grow together and work together for one common goal of winning a baseball game. And like I said, just an unbelievable experience, and something that's where like my heart is on, like, kind of as I move forward with what's next to my career, is doing stuff for baseball and doing stuff internationally. Because like I said, when we moved to Romania, I thought like my baseball was done. I didn't think I was going to be able to play baseball again. But then I was granted that opportunity to play for a little league team, like the national Romanian team. And then that helped propel my passion for the game and helped propel me to be like, no, I want to be a big league baseball player. I can still become a big league baseball player. So getting that opportunity definitely propelled me to continue to chase my dream.
And all this experience that you had, all of a sudden now you get back home and now you're going to play high school baseball. Did you play multiple sports? Did you also play multiple positions when you were in high school?
Yeah. So we, like I said, we played when I was 11, played in the European Little League World Series. We weren't very good, but we did win one game and we beat Ukraine. So that was a game. I started that game as the pitcher, and we ended up winning that ball game. And when we won that game, you would have thought we won the World Cup. Like, we went crazy, like winning that ball game. But when I was 12, we ended up, my dad got an opportunity to be an associate pastor at a church back in Michigan. So we ended up moving back to the States when I was 12, played Little League as a 12-year-old. And then middle school, high school, continued just the love of playing baseball, played football. So to answer your question, I played baseball, football, and basketball in middle school. And then in high school, I played football and baseball. And then when I was 14, 15, 16, baseball was getting pretty serious. It was to a point where, all right, now it's time to really start locking it in and getting recruited for colleges and try to get a scholarship. And then we had an opportunity to move to Beaufort, South Carolina, and a large factor of that was that baseball in the South was a lot better than baseball in Michigan. So it was a way to be closer to family. It was a way for me to continue to get recruited for baseball. So we ended up moving to Beaufort, South Carolina, and I played when I was 16, and then I played football and baseball at Beaufort High. I was a quarterback. I was quarterback and tight end in football, and then in baseball, I was a pitcher, first baseman, and third baseman. And then sometimes I'd play shortstop when they needed me, but mostly third base, first base, and I pitched.
Well, let me ask you, with your development, in the Dominican and also in Romania and all that, and then I know you came to the States and you played several years before high school. When you got to the States, did you feel your development of the game, as a 12-year-old, 13 or 14, in that perspective, was a little bit behind because, the American kids been playing better competition possibly? So was there a benefit in what you did when you were younger, but also a detriment because maybe you didn't get a chance to play competitively as much? Did that hurt at all? Because, a lot of times they say, oh, you got to start kids at a young age. I'm not a big believer. I see some players that, they didn't start to mature till later, and next thing you know, they're playing in the big leagues, right? And they didn't expect them to be able to do that when they were younger.
Mm-hmm. No, I didn't notice a difference. We came back to the States and I was still either the best or one of the top two players on the team.
Nice.
I think that had to do a lot with just my love of the game and my passion for baseball. It was, I always wanted to be the best player on the team. And if somebody was better than me, then I was trying to understand why they were, what aspect of their game was better than mine and what I needed to do to be as good or better than they were. So I think that started, at a very young age for me. But like I said, when we moved to Romania and I thought I had to play soccer, then I was just like, all right, I need to learn everything about this game because I want to be the best at soccer, and maybe I'll be a professional soccer player. But then that didn't work out, and baseball came, and I was able to continue to pursue baseball. But all that being said is, yeah, when you're young and I think playing as many sports as possible, I encourage kids to do that. Like, just don't focus in on one sport. Like, play as many sports and learn as many skills and as you can possibly. Learn how to move better by playing all these different sports, but you really don't need to focus in on just one sport. Now, when I started growing into my body, when I was 15, I grew 6 inches one summer, and then. Wow. When I was 16, 17, I started growing into my body and getting a lot more athletic. And then, I was a late bloomer as well, because when I had that 6-inch growth spurt, I wasn't moving very well. I had a lot of growing pains. I grew 6 inches. I didn't know how to control my body. I was still able to be good at baseball, but I wasn't very good at football or basketball because I couldn't control my body all that well. But like I said, when you're 12, 13, like these kids, you're going to change so much from 12 years old to 15 years old to 16. Like, play as many sports and try to get as athletic as you can, because your body's going to change. You're going to get stronger. You're going to get faster. You're going to so I always encourage kids just to play as many sports as possible and learn as many skills as they can.
Absolutely. Folks on Facebook, we got a lot of people. Thanks for joining and listening. Hey, listen, Asher Wojciechowski, a major league player for a period of about 5 years, but 13 years professional baseball. If you were listening at the beginning, when he was younger, his dad was doing some mission trips, so he got a chance to go to the Dominican Republic and Romania. Asher, later on, not only did you play for the national team for Romania, but now all of a sudden you make another national team. Talk about that experience, what that was like, because that's just tremendous. To be able to represent your country, I don't think there's a better honor in that.
Yeah, you're right. So, yeah, moved to Beaufort, got a baseball scholarship to the Citadel, the military college of South Carolina. So ended up going to the Citadel. And then after my sophomore season, I got invited to the Team USA trials, and something I was extremely proud of, extremely excited about. Went to Team USA trials in Cary, North Carolina, threw the ball extremely well, ended up making the team. So I made the Team USA, the 2009 Team USA collegiate team. And looking back at that roster, the guys that were on that team, it's pretty cool to look back, and the relationships that I built on that team, and the experiences and the players that were just on that team was amazing. And then just
who was the manager, and where'd you guys play? Who managed the team? Do you remember? And where'd you play internationally? Where'd you guys go in the
Yeah.
World Cup?
I am blanking on his name right now. He was the head coach of Tulane. At the time, he was the manager of that team. I can't believe I'm blanking.
That's all right.
On his
That's
name
all right.
now.
But you guys competed in the World Championships at that time?
Yeah. So we went to Japan. We got to play we played the Japanese national team. And that was just the coolest experience to be in college, play on Team USA, and then we traveled to Japan and got to play them in a 5-game series all across Japan, all in different. Every game was in a different city. That was just an amazing experience. And then we ended up playing, and then we left from Japan and flew to British Columbia in Canada, and played in the tournament up there, and that ended our summer. But like I said, just be able to go to a military college, and then from a military college, then play for Team USA and have USA across your chest and represent your country was something that I'm extremely proud of. And I still tell people to this day, playing on Team USA in college was the most fun I had in baseball. Like, I got to play in the big leagues. I got to, play all over, but playing on Team USA in college was definitely that was the most fun team I've ever been on it, and that's just the coolest experience that I've had in baseball.
What was your decision when you decided to go to college instead of signing? How did you make that decision and why?
So I wasn't good enough out of high school to get drafted. I was scratching and
Wow.
clawing just to get a scholarship. So, like I said, I was a late bloomer. I was decent, my junior and senior year of high school, but I wasn't, a standout prospect or anything like that. I was really trying just to get recruited, to get a scholarship, and the Citadel called and offered me a 10% scholarship to come there, and then I bumped them up to 20%, and they said yes, and so I got a 20% scholarship to go to the Citadel. And then after my freshman year, they bumped it up to 50%. And then after my sophomore year, they bumped it up to 75%. So yeah, like I said, I didn't have many options out of high school. It was the Citadel in Winthrop. And then I think if I would have waited till after my senior season, I would have had more offers. But I was kind of in a position I wanted to know going into my senior season, going into that summer of where I was going to go to school, and not have to play that summer ball after my senior year and not know where I was going to sign. So, and, ended up working out really well. Like I said, got to play on Team USA after my sophomore year, and then the confidence that was built after playing on Team USA, I came into my junior year just extremely confident, just came in and ended up having a great junior season, and getting drafted by the Blue Jays in 41st overall in the supplemental first round.
Wow.
And then that started my professional career.
What was the toughest thing breaking into? Now you went to the Citadel, so it's amazing. That talk about a great program, disciplined. Good coaching. It's a growing experience. I mean, you're going to college is an incredible experience in itself, life experience. You're on your own in a lot of ways, but it's not quite like pro ball where you're on your own a lot more. What was the toughest thing going into professional baseball for you when after leaving college?
That's a good question. I mean, honestly, I thought that it was pretty easy kind of
Easier?
transitioning because of how,
Well, you
yeah,
well,
just
you were
like
developing
how,
later, so it became easier. Sure.
yeah. So with just how regimented and disciplined and structured the Citadel is, and um, the early wake ups, and the wearing a uniform and getting yelled at, and push ups, and sleeping in a bunk bed, and then you get to pro ball and you're like, oh, everything's on my own. So I think the transition was like, uh, having a lot more downtime, and then trying to fill your time of like what you need to work on. And I'd say a big transition is going from all about a team aspect in college to in pro ball. It is more of like you're on a team and you're in an organization, but I mean, it's on your own in the off season, to do what you got to do, and to know what you need to do to get better. So I'd say that was a transition on just how regimented the Citadel is. I could tell you any time of the day what exactly I was doing at the Citadel, whether it was workouts, class, making your bed, ironing your uniform, shining your shoes. But yeah, definitely the transition into pro ball and adjusting to just the professional life of, being away from your family for 8 months out of the year, and traveling across the country, and just adjusting to that. But like I said, I think my childhood really prepped me for that, of living
Sure.
all over the world and all the country. So I felt pretty prepared going into my professional career.
Did you also automatically have success in professional baseball as a pitcher, or was there an adjustment period there that you had to learn certain things coming out of college?
Yeah, so I had success right away in that short season, and then I ended up getting shut down. My shoulder was kind of bothering me. I threw a lot my junior year, um, and probably should have taken the summer off after getting drafted just to get prepared for the next season. But I had success right away, and then that following season I did struggle. So I skipped. So my first year in pro ball, I skipped low A and I went straight to high A, and I struggled. Um, the month of May and June really struggled. I had a really good April, and I was throwing the ball, like attacking hitters, and then I was in the Blue Jay system, and this is when the Blue Jays, and this is when throwing sinkers and sliders was what everybody wanted to do, is in cutters. And Roy Halladay was with the Blue Jay. Doc Halladay, he was, the master of throwing a sinker cutter combo with a good slider. And so my first year, the Blue Jays wanted me to throw sinkers, and I had never thrown a sinker. I wasn't a sinker ball pitcher at all. So I really struggled trying to adjust to throw a sinker. And then finally, after a month of just absolutely just getting rocked, they came to me and they said, "All right, just go back to how you normally throw." So I stopped throwing sinkers, and I ended up throwing the ball really well the rest of the year. And then the next season got traded to the Astros, halfway through the season. But to answer your question, yeah, that first season I did struggle. I think a big part of that was not knowing my strengths, and trying to throw a pitch that I've never thrown before, and that was the biggest struggle for me.
Sure. And all of a sudden now you get called up with the Astros, I believe, right? What was that like when you got that phone call? How did what did the manager call into the office? And then your first big league experience pitching in the big leagues. That had to be, I
Mhm.
mean, I would assume there had to be a lot of nerves at that time.
Yeah, so got traded to the Astros in 2012, and then threw the ball really well for them in 2012 and 2013. And then in 2014, I went into camp thinking that I was going to, make the team out of camp. Ended up getting hurt in spring training. I tore my lat. And then each time I tried to come back too soon from that lat tear, I would feel really good, and then I'd go throw, and then I'd restrain it. So I ended up missing half the season in 2014, and then came back, didn't have a great season in 2014, but then went and played winter ball in Dominican, and then came in 2015, and I felt really good. Ended up throwing the ball extremely well that spring training, and I made the big league team out of spring training in 2015 for the Houston Astros. And I remember getting called into the office that morning. I'd always gotten to the ballpark really early during spring training. I'd always get up there around 5:45 in the morning. And I walked in, and AJ Hinch called me in to the office as I was walking in, and sat me down. And he just told me, he goes, he phrased it in a way that, um, it wasn't like, "Hey, you made the team, you're going to the big leagues." He phrased it in a way that, like, "Well, you really pitched your way into being on this team and on this roster, and that's why you're going to be with us on opening day." And I was just like, "Okay, thanks." Like, it was, it didn't really hit me, because I was just like, I was I had prepared myself and kind of prepped myself for that news, and then how he had phrased it, it was just kind of like, "Okay, well, thanks. Like, let's go. I'm ready." Um, and I will say it hit me when I called my wife, like, afterwards. So I left the office, and I got on the phone, called my wife, told her the news. And then I called my parents, and like when you tell your family that like your dream of like everything that you've worked for is come true, I mean, that definitely is a moment that you'll always remember. And like, times of being in Romania or being in Dominican, and like all those kind of just flash in front of you, and you remember just the journey that it took to get that news that you're a big leaguer. It's definitely a special moment.
Wow.
And
And
then
but also now all of a sudden you're going from the minor leagues to the big leagues where the hitters, there's better hitters in the lineup, right? Throughout the lineup. What was that adjustment like? And even your first time that you had to pitch, that had to be incredible.
yeah, yeah. So my debut, it was in Minute Maid, against the Cleveland Indians. The first batter I faced was Michael Bourne. He hit a double off the Crawford boxes. So that was my first big league hitter. Um, and if Minute Maid, those Crawford boxes are in left field, and they're
Yep.
really short. And he hit it. I thought it was a fly ball to left, and it ended up being a double. So that was fun. And then the next batter was Jose Ramirez, and he laid a bunt down the third base line for a single. So first two batters, I'm at first and third with nobody out in my
Wow.
first inning. Ended up getting out of it. I gave up one run in the first, but my debut was nothing special. I gave up, I went 4 innings, gave up 4 runs. We ended up losing, and then shortly after, a couple days after, we had a game where our pitching staff got used up pretty badly, so I had to go to the bullpen. And then I ended up coming out of the bullpen and throwing 4 scoreless innings in relief. But after that game, I got called in the office and said I'm being optioned to AAA.
Wow.
So that was kind of a shock. That was a shock because I just thrown 4 scoreless out of the bullpen, really helped out the bullpen, and threw the ball really well. And then right after the game, hey, we got to make a roster move because we used up too many pitchers, so we're optioning you
Wow.
to AAA. So got told that. Then before getting optioned though, so like 2 days later, I was about to fly to Fresno to meet with the AAA team, but they had an injury in the big league, on the big league team, then like 2 days later. So I got a phone call, hey, don't go to Fresno, we need you to stay. So it was just a roller coaster of that first month in the big leagues was a roller coaster of emotions of making your debut, getting optioned, not leaving, getting the call, hey, stay around, you might be on the team, and then getting put, like staying on the team, and then ending up a month later getting optioned again. So it was it's just part of the game, but it was definitely just a roller coaster of emotions, kind of that first, getting your feet wet in the big leagues.
Well, the other thing is you played for 10 different organizations. So you got this roller coaster, in the big leagues. And then you've got, it's a game of failure. You're going to fail. You're going to, what's advice, some
Mm-hmm.
advice you have? How did you get through some of these days where you had a bad game or maybe a couple of bad games, and then you got sent down, then came back up? How did you deal with that mentally? Because, there's a lot of young players that are dealing with it in high school or anywhere else, right? They're going to fail, and it's
Mm-hmm.
tough to come back all the time. It is more of a mental game. So anything I know your life helped you, with how you grew up and everything, I'm sure. But was there anything else that you did daily to kind of help you with that?
Yeah, I think it's just having like a resilient mindset, and also having just a grateful mindset as well. Of the failures in baseball are going to hurt. It's going to mess with you mentally, but also just having that mindset of getting better no matter of what's happening, getting 1% better each day, or just going in and what can I do to get better? What can I do to prepare for next time? What can I learn from this failure? And just loving it and loving the grind, loving the process. So like there were so many times where, having a bad outing in the big leagues, and then I got DFA'd after the game. So I got taken off the roster. And then you got you walk out and I have to go tell my wife, hey, we got to go pack up the apartment and we're going back to AAA. I mean, it's a gut punch, but then one, for me, having a wife that she is a pusher and a motivator, and whenever I told her news like that, she was like, okay, you're gonna be fine, let's go do it. And she'd pack up the apartment. I would go to AAA. She'd encourage me the whole time, and then I'd get called back up. And it was just having that support system, one, helped me tremendously. And then, like I said, two, just having that resiliency and having that mindset of like, no, I'm not going to let this defeat me. I'm not going to let this be my story. Like I'm going to come back from this. Like I love the process. I love the grind and the grit and the determination to, I'm going to get better from this, and I'm going to return from this and be a better player and better pitcher from this, and better teammate, better, husband. And yeah, that was kind of my mindset of just, the ups and downs and the failures of baseball. And you're going to fail. Like you're going to fail. You're going to be really good sometimes and you're going to be terrible sometimes, but just finding that balance between the two, and then just loving the process. Because if you don't love the process, I've had a lot of teammates that they didn't, they were good at baseball, but they didn't necessarily love it, or they didn't love the process. And when they had those failures, a lot of guys would just be like, well, I'm just going to go home. Like, so for me, it was just loving baseball and loving the process, loving the grind, and just being determined to not let a failure determine the outcome.
Yeah, I enjoy hearing that, boy. And I'm glad you brought up your wife, because every time I have an interview with somebody, including my wife, it's amazing how they can really get, lift you up and put you in your place in some ways. Because I tend to be negative,
Mm-hmm.
and then all of a sudden my wife jumps in, and changes me, and I need that. But the other part you talked about college baseball being a team game, and then you go into professional baseball. It is a team game, but at the same time, now it's profession, and you're trying to beat somebody else out, right? So now you're in the big leagues. You're trying to stay in the big leagues, even though they're your friends. You still want to do the best you can, so you stay there. So you don't want to be the guy going down, right? What did you do to recover faster, to stay healthier? Advice for young kids, after they pitch a game, or prior to that, some preparation, anything like that.
Yeah. So for me, like I said, I always love the process. I love the preparation. So, as a starter, I had each day mapped out and regimented. So like day one would be or day zero is your start day. So you go in, you throw, hopefully, complete game shutout or 7 innings, like shutout. then try to get a good night's rest that night. I would try to sleep, anywhere from 9 to 10 hours after an outing like that, and really try to rest and recover. And then I would start day one would be usually a heavy workout day, whether that was in the weight room, getting after it with in my younger days in my career, it'd be a heavy lower body lift, or even before that, like a run from like either like 10 100-yard sprints, or getting on the treadmill, or getting on an elliptical, like for like a 30-minute cardio, just try to get a long, like kind of cardio session in. And then as I got older, it kind of turned into more of just sprint work. Like I said, with how I said earlier, how my hips, I have no cartilage in my hips. So I really kind of got away from running, and I got into more of just kind of sprint work, explosive work. But that day one would be, a lot of just getting a good workout in, getting in the sauna, getting in an ice bath, and really just trying to get my body just bouncing back from that start. And then day two would usually be an upper body day and a bullpen day, or sometimes I would do a bullpen day on day three. But I'd have a workout on day one, a workout on day two, and then day three would be another recovery day, more just mobility work, flexibility work, maybe some yoga, and then some more cardio work on a bike, on an elliptical. And then day 4 would be a rest day, recovery day, kind of prep day, more mobility work, getting ready for that day 5 of that start day again. So that was usually my routine. And I would always also just try to listen to my body, during those times. There'd be some times where maybe I didn't need to maybe I need to focus more on rest, or maybe I needed to get after it more in the weight room, or maybe I needed to get some body work done. But I had a pretty structured and regimented schedule that I would stick to, especially if I was throwing the ball well. I was sticking to that schedule. And then when you're not throwing the ball well, making sure that you're not changing too much, because then that's just going to mess with you more. And so just trying to find that routine and that schedule that works for you, and everybody's different.
What kind of routine did you have prior to the game? Did you play some catch? You play long toss? Did you do bands to warm up? What routine? So and then you went into the bullpen. Kind of like to hear also a little bit about how you prepared in the bullpen for that game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So as a starter, my pre-game routine. So that whole day as a starter, no matter what, no matter what level, I was nervous every start day. Like that whole day, tough to eat food, tough to just be calm. Like I'd have sweaty palms the whole day. But I would always make sure that I had a good breakfast and I had a good pregame meal, and I would try to eat lighter stuff that wasn't going to sit heavy. So like stick with like an omelet with vegetables, and like potatoes in the morning. And then for like pregame meal, it would either be like white rice and some white chicken and like avocado, or like a light turkey sandwich, but something that's just not going to sit heavy on the stomach. I didn't want like Mexican food or a big steak or anything like pregame. I wanted something that's going to make me feel light. And pregame routine usually started about an hour and a half before the game for me. And then as I got older, that time was hour and 45, 2 hours, just to try to prep the body. But about an hour and a half before the game, I'd get in the hot tub and I'd sit in the hot tub for about 5 minutes, do all sorts of different stretches while I was in the hot tub. Then I'd get out and I would do like my foam rolling routine and my stretching routine. And then from there, that's usually I'm done with that about an hour before the game. And then like about 40 minutes before game time, I would start my plyo ball routine of throwing weighted balls against the wall, getting my arm loose, doing crossover symmetry bands, just getting prep work done there. Oh, after the a hot tub, I'd usually have a trainer kind of stretch my hips and stretch my arm, just do stuff with a trainer, just to kind of prep the body. But yeah, about 40 minutes before, start with the weighted balls, and then 30 minutes before, I would go out to the line, out on the field, do some sprint work, do some active warm up, like running work and jumping work. And then I usually would start my throwing routine, my long toss routine, about 23 minutes before game time. And would long toss, out to about 120, 150 feet. And then rip pull downs on the way in. That would last anywhere from 5 to 7 minutes, depending on how I was feeling. If I was feeling really good that day, I would kind of save my bullets on there. Then about 15 minutes before the game, get on the mound. I had about a 10-minute routine of throwing anywhere from 22 to 30 pitches in the bullpen for my routine. Like I said, if things were going well and I felt good, I would limit the pitches and kind of save the bullets. if I wasn't really hitting my spots, that's where, I would kind of throw 26 or 27 pitches or 28. And then, yeah, about 5 minutes before game time, be finished up, walk to the dugout, cool off for a little bit, get a sip of water, sit down, get the heart rate down, and then run out and start the game. So that was my pregame routine as a starter.
And in that bullpen, was there something you were trying to establish, a release point consistency or anything, something that you knew that I needed to get this done to make sure, so at least this is working for me, and then I'm ready for the ball game? Is there anything particular?
Yeah, mostly just kind of glove side fastball. I really wanted to make sure I had that release point down, because I felt like if I had that down going into start, then arm side fastball I could always command very easily. So just making sure I was getting that feel and extension on a glove side fastball. And each day sometimes you might feel a little tight in your arm or your legs, and something might, or your obliques, and something might be causing you to maybe not get that extension. So for me, it was just getting that glove side fastball kind of and feeling that extension and that release. And then once I had that, then I knew that everything kind of worked off that for me. And so that was kind of my big focus on throwing. And then I wasn't too worried too much about the spin of my slider or curveball or cutter during my bullpen. I'll just make sure I threw some, had some feel for it, because I knew that, in the game it's gonna feel much different, because things in the bullpen don't transfer into the game most of the time. So really just trying to get that feel of the fastball and fastball command down before going out.
Yeah, we were just talking with Jeremy Guthrie, who's with the Royals, and a similar thing, right? I asked him the question: how many times did you have a good bullpen and then go to a game and not do so good, or vice versa, right? You never knew really what was going to happen until you get out there. But let's say you're in the game now and you're pitching, and advice for younger pitchers here. This is the reason I bring these things up, to help coaches also how to deal with, how to help players, or players to help themselves in this situation. And that is, when you get into jams or situations where all of a sudden you got runners on, the pressure builds up more, it's late innings, whatever the situation may be. How did you have something you kind of went to help you in those situations? Or, because you just can't say, well, it's just another situation. Well, it's not. There's a lot more pressure. Is there anything you did particularly, or advice you might have?
So I would always just try to slow the game down as much as I could. So when runners got on, I always, with nobody on, I wanted to work as fast as possible. Like I was rocking fire, get the ball back. Let's get it going. Runners get on, I was way more deliberate in my timing. Like, so, I would take things speed up when runners get on. So I would make sure when I got the ball back, if I needed to step off the mound, find the foul pole to look at, kind of reset, but really just slow things down. Because and just be aware of your surroundings. And that always helped me, just to be able to just, all right, I just need to slow it down. I can't be up here trying to rush. I really just need to take a breath, to work on my breathing, refocus, find something to look at and refocus, to kind of just reset yourself. And a lot of times that was like looking at a foul pole or looking somewhere up in the stadium to kind of just recenter your thoughts and your breathing. And that was something that, it comes with experience. It's each stage, pitching in AA, AAA, the big leagues, lights are brighter each time, and it's new adrenaline, it's new feelings. It's I remember there was games in the big leagues where I couldn't feel my legs, like, because I had so much adrenaline and like my heart was pounding. But like you eventually you get used to it, and then but you have to have those cues on, like, all right, no, this is just another game. This is baseball. I've done this my whole life. I know what I'm doing, and kind of find things to recenter yourself. And so, like, some people would be step off the back of the rubber, kick the rubber. Like, you see, if you watch pitchers, you'll see guys do things to kind of reset themselves. It's when the game is speeding up. And And like everybody's different. For me, it was stepping off the mound, taking a breath, looking around, getting back on, and then and going from there.
Very interesting. Love it, folks. This is fantastic. We got a few more minutes still going. I got a lot more I want to get into here because the other aspect of all this, and again, remember, it's a show. We want to talk about the person and their background, where they grew up and how things, how they developed into the game. And so others can learn, but also, teaching coaches and players how to be better. And look, and we all know it's not a perfect science. Players are going to get hurt, pitchers especially, because you're throwing all the time, especially if you've been throwing since you were younger, pitching off a mound. I get the part that you're going to have injuries, but I also get the part that they're throwing harder nowadays. Well, that's an issue too, because that's a detriment on the body, on the shoulder, on the joints, and so forth. What's your advice? Because we are seeing a little bit more injuries. What are you seeing in younger players? Maybe advice you can give them to try to at least stay healthier. You can't be, stop them from getting hurt. They're going to get hurt eventually. But what can you at least help them with when it comes to their development to kind of help them with that process?
For me, it's really just has to do with taking care of your body with how you eat, how you hydrate, and how you sleep. I think that one, like the development that you're seeing in players is, one, kids are getting stronger and faster in throwing, and they have access to all this information on how to move more properly, how to move more efficiently, what exercises to do. And so for me, it's, you can do all those things, but if you're not eating well and you're not hydrating and you're not sleeping, you're going to get hurt, because you're going to break down because your body's not recovering.
Great point.
For me, that was something I loved to get after it in the weight room. I loved to get after it in long toss and push my body and let it, throw as hard as I possibly could. But I also had to be just as regimented and strict on how much I slept, and on how well I hydrated, on my diet. So I think those are things that you can control. You can't control if you tear your UCL, because some people, they go through the whole career and they don't have any arm issues. But things that you can control is what you eat, how you hydrate, how you sleep, and what you're putting into your body. And so that's what I would recommend, is just, if you want to be a top tier athlete, you want to be the best of the best, well, you got to fuel yourself and take care of yourself with what you eat, what you drink, and how much you're sleeping to really get the best benefits.
I love that you brought that up, because I guarantee you, even myself in some ways, or anybody else listening, the first thing you would have thought the answer would have been, well, make sure that your movement of your body is correct. But you're right. They're getting a lot of that. They're getting a lot of information. They're getting a lot of work in those areas. And that seems like the separator, the three things you talked about, the sleep, the nutrition, and all that. You were lucky because you got that in college, right? You got it early on. You learned that earlier. A lot of young kids don't learn that. When did you know you were going to be a pitcher? That was your position. When did you know that and decide that? Because that's what got you later on to the major leagues.
That probably Little League. I always
Wow.
realized that I was a hard thrower, and I was usually the best pitcher on the team. So I think that's kind of just carried over and throughout my baseball career. And then, like I said, I was a late bloomer athletically. So I wasn't going to be a shortstop. I wasn't going to be a second baseman. I wasn't going to be a center fielder. So I focused on pitching, and then I kind of just knew from the time of 11, 12 years old that I like having the ball in my hands. I like being in control of the game, and that goes to show with like football as well. I like being the quarterback. I like having the ball. So I think, to answer your question, from about Little League, I knew I wanted to be a pitcher then.
When you were in Little League, what pitches were you throwing? What would you recommend the young kids now? Go ahead and with these pitches? Stay away from other pitches? Anything particular?
I remember throwing just a fastball. I remember throwing a curveball. I don't remember it being very good. I remember trying to throw a changeup, but like, it not being very good. So I remember mostly just relying on a fastball and then like a curveball. But literally just, the development of kids from when I was in Little League to now is way different. But yeah, mostly I just threw a fastball and a curveball back then. I would recommend, kids, it's in Little League age, developing that fastball. And like I said, they're going to grow. Like you're in Little League, like you're going to grow. You're going to be 13, 14, 15. You're going to be way different than when you were in Little League. So like trying to throw a slider or throwing a curveball, your hands are going to be much bigger by the time you're 15, 16 than when you were 12. So like, it's going to be a different pitch. So don't worry too much about a curveball. Yeah, I think it's good to practice and practice finger placement and work on, but I wouldn't worry too much about it because like I said, you're just going to develop way more as you grow and get bigger.
Fantastic. Wojo, this has been great, man. But I did not forget, because people got to know this. You retired in 2022, and all of a sudden you end up in Cairo, Egypt, with the training 2,500 players there. How did that happen, and what was that experience like? I know that that's going to take you to what you're trying to do now. You love international baseball, and you want to help coaches and players around the world. And I'm so thrilled to hear that. But talk about your experience in Cairo.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up because that's something I really wanted to talk about. So yeah, I decided to retire last year, and I was in the process of what do I want to do next, and I always have had a heart for doing stuff internationally. I want to grant kids the opportunity that was granted to me in Romania of the opportunity to play baseball. So like I was looking at all these different like organizations that are doing things internationally and trying to find what I can do to help. And then I came across the nonprofit Because Baseball, and it was actually recommended to me by one of my buddies and former teammates that I rehabbed with the Yankees in 2021. And so I look into Because Baseball, I send them an email, I get on the phone with the CEO, Kemp Golden, and we get to talking. And I tell him my life story of, living internationally and playing professionally and my heart for doing stuff internationally. And then next thing I know, my wife and I are on a flight to Cairo, Egypt, and we've volunteered for 4 weeks to live in Cairo and work with 4 different schools in an orphanage. And we reached over 2,500 kids and teaching them the game of baseball. So we worked with
these
the
kids
PE
didn't know
teachers.
these kids didn't know baseball at all.
Literally have never seen baseball before. Like we brought in all equipment. We were like, hey, go grab a glove, and they don't know how to put a glove on. And like it's and to be able to do that and like see the love of the game through these kids' eyes, and like how to unify people from all over the world through the game of baseball was just the coolest experience. And then to see each week we go back to each school and we see these kids progress, and then like how excited they were to play baseball, and then just the relationships we built through it. It was just such a cool experience. And it was just to be able to throw a baseball at the base of the pyramids it was just a surreal experience. Like where you got the pyramids in the background, we're playing catch, we're going to these schools, we're working with these kids, we're working with these PE teachers, we're working with their parents. And like now we have their parents asking where can we buy these gloves? Where like my son, my daughter, they love baseball. Where can and then just to see that interest grow, see the joy that baseball brings to families. It was so cool. And so we worked with, like I said, 4 different schools, an orphanage. We would go in Sunday through Thursday to the schools. And then at the end of the 4 weeks, we had one big clinic that the kids could sign up for and come to this clinic. And we had close to 100 kids come out for that last one. So it was kids from all the different schools, kids from the orphanage, and we had them all on one field, just playing together, getting along from all these different schools. And it was just such a cool experience just to be able to do that in a place like Cairo, Egypt, that you have the Nile River, you have the pyramids, you have Islamic Cairo. It was, like I said, surreal experience. And then a really cool thing that happened when we were there was I found out that John Carlos Stanton was on vacation in Egypt, and
Wow.
he and I had played briefly together with the Yankees. Like I said, I got hurt with the Yankees in 2021. I pitched one game for the New York Yankees in 2021, but I had pitched against John Carlo a bunch of times before that. So I found out he was on vacation. I messaged him. Didn't think his schedule would match up, but he was in Cairo at the time that we were at one of the schools. He messaged me back, came out to the schools, and he worked with us for a day and taught these kids, and it was a really cool experience. Are you there?
Asher, can you hear me? Can you
We're
hear me?
back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry. I don't know what happened here. I suddenly got three screens now. You were right at the end too. All right, so it's still
I,
recording. You know where we ended?
yeah, I was talking. I said that about John Carlos Stanton. Did
Yeah,
you
go ahead.
hear much
Start
of
with John
that?
Start with that. Yeah, we hear quite a bit. The part about where you texted him and you weren't sure if you're gonna, if he was gonna connect
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah. So yeah, I messaged him and wasn't sure if, the schedules were going to work out, but it ended up he was in Cairo on Sunday and we were at a school on Sunday. So he called me when I was at the school and he's like, hey, I can come out. So he came out for an hour and worked with the kids. And it was just a really cool experience to have like one of the top 10 most recognizable players in baseball. And he comes out and these Egyptian kids, one, they had no idea who he was. And but he's out there and showing kids how to hit
Wow.
and he's and kids how to throw. And it was just such a cool experience.
Wow, to be able to do that, that is incredible. Yeah, and you're right. Nobody knows who he is, so he probably liked it anyways, because that's in
Yeah.
some ways it's even better, right? When they don't know who you are, you just have some fun with them. And lastly,
Hmm.
part of this is, I grew up in a baseball school when I was young, and I was fortunate to coach when I was young, a lot of young kids. But that's really when my learning experience came in. When you have to work with young kids, you become a better teacher. But let alone working with kids that have never played the game. So how much better did you
Hmm.
become as not only just a person, but also as a teacher because of how you had to break it down for the kids and kind of work with them and help them out?
Yeah, it helped me tremendously just with simplifying the game. Catch the ball, throw the ball, hit the ball. Like it was essentially those were the three skills we were trying to teach. And so simplifying it and then the joy of baseball. Like I said, I was a journeyman in baseball. I'd been DFA'd over 6 times, released multiple times, bounced around 10 different teams, had some great games, had some terrible games, but to go there and just see the joy that baseball brings people was super uplifting for myself. And um, it just helped me just, kind of love the game again after a long career and kind of being kind of burnt out and beat up from it, to be able to go to a different country and bring the love of the game and the joy of the game and have the kids kind of show me that again was super just a super cool experience.
That's awesome. And what's amazing is the experiences that we have when we're young. We never know how those are going to take us into the future, right? Look where it took you, right? You started in Budapest and Dominican Republic, and next thing you know, you end up in Cairo, um, you know, doing a similar thing, but now not as a player, but now as a coach, right? To help grow the
Hmm.
game there and get some excitement with those kids. Did you guys finally? Did you get a chance to? I think you mentioned it, but I didn't understand. Did you get a chance to actually play some games, or was it mostly training?
It was mostly training. Towards the end we actually played some some form of baseball,
Simulated.
kind
Yeah.
of.
How did you do that? What did you
Yeah,
do
so
there?
essentially it was breaking up into offense, defense, and then so we had to, you know, one, they had never played baseball, so just the amount of rules in baseball is extremely hard to break down. So we would just do a bunch of skill work to start with, and then implement the game little by little, and then towards the end, we were actually playing all right, offense, defense, hit the ball, run to first, and then the kids were figuring it out. Hey, tag the person if you can, get to the base if you can before they do, throw the ball to first base, field grounders, catch pop-ups. If it's in the air, catch it. So uh, we were able to really get to that point. And so as of right now, I do know, so the spring season is going on right now, and there's two other coaches in Cairo right now working with these kids again. So they sent me some videos. It was kind of cool to see them even progressing even more. And so that was is really cool to see, just these kids loving it, and then the progression is something that it's really exciting.
I'll tell you what, this has been fantastic. Can't thank you enough, man. The passion, love, that you have for the game, not just in the U.S., but, around the world, and wanting to spread that, uh, great thing about the sport of baseball, what it does, how you helps you grow and everything and learn, and what an experience. Hopefully one day we'll get a chance to work together. But again, can't thank you enough for being on the show, and, make sure that you keep in touch, so that way we know your progress with international baseball. Maybe you'll be joining Baseball for Good or ISG Baseball as one of the coaches. I hope that comes true one day.
I hope so too, and I look forward to continuing this work and seeing what we can do together.
All right, folks, that is Asher Wojo. They call him Wojciechowski, former Major League player. That was an awesome discussion. I think there was a lot of great learning points there. Thanks, everybody, for joining us on Facebook. Thank you, everybody in the U.S. and around the world. Don't forget, check us out on social media. And always stay healthy. God bless you. And we'll see you on the next show.